So picture this, you spend 11 years working on a team to make a game, restarting development twice, putting out 4 fires in the office and debugging until 4 AM every night, and what do you get out of it? A paycheck. Ass. I don't want rent money, I want recognition. We can't just let the hard work of game developers go uncredited. What's the point in doing something if other people can't praise me for it? Hence, rolling credits. The credits, staff roll, whatever you may call it, obviously didn't debut with video games. Author and acknowledgement credits have been a thing for books for literal ages, though for a more relevant example, movie credits. I'm gonna shock your socks off and tell you that credits didn't debut alongside movies. For decades at the start of film, they just weren't really a thing. Opening credits, absolutely. Throw in a few big names involved here and there, and maybe at the end a complete cast credit. And there we go, who cares about everyone else? Who gives a shit about key grips? They didn't direct It's a Wonderful Life. I did. But give it a few decades and things started to shift. People started to want credit, and rightfully so around the mid to late 50s, opening credits and incomplete end credits started to be phased out, with some of the first major examples of movies with full end credits sequences believed to be Around the World in 80 Days and West Side Story. A sort of similar principle was applied to video games. Early examples, your Ataris, your Magnavox Odysseys, your Tennis for Twos, generally didn't have credits for games. Atari actually had a policy against crediting developers because you, which led to one of the most prolific Easter eggs in gaming history, which also serves as a very early example of developer credits. Adventure for the Atari 2600, some people know it for... No offense, but I think this is the primary thing people remember about Adventure. By collecting an invisible item and bringing it to a certain part of the map, you find a credit to one Warren Robinette, put there as a secret to circumvent Atari's policy. That's not to say early video games never had credits, because sometimes they did. Video games didn't start to adopt credits at a snail's pace like with movies. They happened much earlier on in their lifespan, including in some arcade games. It's not as easy to find what the absolute first game with credits is, but after a bit of research, I believe it's King's Quest 1984, which lists its credits on its title screen. We finally made it, writing letters have never been so fun. The mid-80s is where full credits really started to kick off. The original Zelda, for example. You finish that game, Zelda glazes Link, and you see a list of everyone who worked on the game and their role in its production. Who the f*** is 1010? So this was a thing at one point in time, mainly in Japanese games, crediting developers not with their proper names, but with pseudonyms. Apparently this was done to purposefully obscure the identities of those involved so developers wouldn't try to snatch talents from other companies. I'm not sure if you picked up on this, but this sucks. I understand why they did it, but this wasn't a good practice. People deserve proper credit for their work, not some forced pen name. Single Shigeru. To be fair, this wasn't a thing every game did. There were still games that used devs' real names, albeit usually using an abbreviation of their first name while keeping their last name intact. This was mostly an 80s and early 90s thing though. It was mercifully phased out around the mid-90s. You finished Star Fox 64 and look at that, here Yoshimoto did tech support. At one point, and even a bit later on, games sometimes didn't put credits in the game themselves, but instead stuck them in a manual. Take Wii Sports, no credits within the game, but crack open the manual and boom, NOA localization by Rich Amtower and Thomas Connery. But it wasn't exactly consistent. The sequel, Wii Sports Resort, didn't have credits in-game either. It did in its manual, but only in its European variant. Why? Come on guys, surely we can kill a few more trees to stick a page of credits in the American manual. Of course, I'd prefer a fancy credit scene in these games with special music and maybe a little mini-game, but hey, credits are credits. And speaking of which, with the advancement of better tech, many games started to incorporate little games into their credit sequences. Like Super Monkey Ball, you collect bananas and gotta avoid the letters, it's fun. Also, for some reason, in the North American and Japanese versions, Chigaku Fukihara is credited as 2D designer, but in the European version, he's credited as 2D designer. Smash Bros is one of my favorite examples of this, shooting names. Yeah, screw Asami Koyana, what did she do for this game? Another common trope you'll see with modern game credits is vocal songs. Rhythm Heaven usually pulls some good ones out, and as I'm writing this, Groove hasn't come out yet, so I'm just hoping it does.
It did!
Portal's one of the more popular examples, but I always like the one at the end of Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. It's funny.
Wait, they announced a prequel? A year ago? I didn't know about this!
Sometimes during a credit sequence, you'll get a glimpse into what the development of the game is like, either through a showcase of the game's concept art, or in my personal favorite example, the devs of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 f***ing around. You ever wonder what the people credited as special thanks did? What did Mark Binder do for Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal? Did Did he keep the developer's papers in order? Sometimes credits will show you things like whatever happened to a group of characters. Ace Attorney typically shows you what most of the non-culprit characters are up to, and I like that. I like anything that gives me more Eustace Winter. In turn, just like movies, sometimes you'll get a post-credits scene, either teasing a future entry or just some comedic extra. Like Incredible Crisis for the PS1 ends with a big ol' to be continued after a cliffhanger. There is no Incredible Crisis sequel. But you know what really sucks? When games have credits, but leave out people. This is mostly an issue with ports and remasters. Like some of Nintendo's recent HD remasters. The Metroid Prime remaster and Donkey Kong Country Returns HD only fully credit the remaster staff, with the original staff just getting the staff of the original game at the end of the credits, which is sucky. I've also never been a fan of when games don't show you credits when you finish a game and instead it's just a menu option. I get the menu option part, but like, the credits are like your you did it moment, so not showing them when the game ends on top of having that menu option is incredibly strange to me. Nowadays, most every game release credits its developers in one way or another. The main exception to this are like those copy-pasted mobile games with endless ads and no unique art style. You might very rarely see a game that doesn't have any credits. Here's one, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. If you want another reason to dislike it, here you go. It doesn't have a credit sequence. All we know is that ND Cube or Nintendo Cube made it. But again, this is a rare exception, not the rule. Generally, if a game exists and is on consoles or PC, it has some kind of credits. I don't know for sure what my favorite credit sequence in a game is, but if I had to pick one right here, right now, I would pick Astrobots. First of all, half of the credits are a playable interactive level, so right off the bat it gets the credits minigame credit. And then in the latter part of the credits, when they're showing you the names of all the incidental characters, which is another thing I like when credits do, they credit everyone. People who worked on tools used to make the game, family and other loved ones of the development staff, those who've passed on, production babies, people who've worked on the games they represent, and not just as developers, but as friends, all set to some of the best music in the game. Man, I love Astrobot, it's just so happy. I know I'm saying absolutely nothing new by saying this, but you obviously shouldn't base your entire sense of accomplishment on having your name slapped on something. You risk devaluing your work that way. I know I joked about it before, but please tell me you didn't take that seriously. But developers still should be proud of their work. No matter how good or bad a game is, perceived as lazy or an incredible feat of engineering, game dev is no small task. Even beyond video games, the work that people put into something, whether it be a book or movie or some other kind of project, people should always be credited for what they do. What?